Hello and welcome to Food Safety Fridays. My name's Simon Timpley from the International Food Safety and Quality Network, and we've got an array of special guests today. We've got Natalie, Robert and Betsy from AIB International, and Hendrik from Almarai Group. So we're blessed today for our Food Safety Fridays of 2021. Tell us in the sidebar, tell us where you're joining us from today, as you always do. Great to see Germany, Alabama, Atlanta, Philippines, Canada, Egypt, Jamaica. Amazing, all over the world. Okay, so we'll just have a quick go round. So Natalie, if you just want to tell us who you are and where you're joining us from today, Natalie.
Hi everyone, nice to see you. I'm Natalie Martinez. I'm a sales director at AIB International, and I'm joining from the UK, so Nottingham to be precise, for those of you in the UK. Robin Hood country, I guess. So.
Yeah, everybody knows Robin Hood. And Betsy?
My name is Betsy Blair. It's nice to see all of you. I am the QA director for Europe, Africa, Middle East, China, Asia Pacific. I'm coming to you today from West Texas on top of one of the biggest oil fields in the world.
Very nice. And Robert?
Hello everybody, my name's Rob Buckley. I'm the Regional Sales Manager for AIB for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm coming to you from Northamptonshire in the UK. Lovely.
And last but not least, Hendrik.
Also coming here from the oil fields of Saudi Arabia, Hendrik Ludik. I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. Been with Almarai for nearly 10 years and looking forward to this discussion.
Super. Okay, but before we get on with the presentation, I'm going to play the sponsors ads, of which AIB International are one of the kind sponsors. So play that now and we'll be back in a couple of minutes for the presentation. Now, I'll be back for the Q&A later. If you can hold your questions till the end, that would be great. We'll be catching all your questions afterwards. Okay, see you in a bit.
So, hello everybody, I'm Rob Buckley, AIB International's Regional Sales Manager for Europe, Asia and Africa, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're excited that you're here for this webinar about pandemic preparedness. We're planning to cover a lot of ground in the next 50 minutes or so, and we'll close with a Q&A session, so please submit any questions that you might have through the chat feature at the side. So AIB International works with globally recognised brands and for over 100 years have been providing technical expertise to the food industry. We offer our services in over 126 countries and are recognised globally for our consolidated standards focused on food safety. We inspire the entire food industry to embrace and apply the highest food integrity standards. So I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. So we've got Natalie Martinez, who's AIB International's Regional Sales Director for Europe, Middle East and Africa. Natalie joined AIB in May 2018, having spent 4 years as a third-party auditor, prior to which she spent 11 years working in a regulatory role advising food and beverage companies on their legal compliance requirements. As for myself, I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I joined AIB in November 2019. I've got a commercial background with over 20 years experience in sales, marketing and business development, around 12 years within the certification industry and 10 of those within the food and beverage sector. Betsy Blair is our Director of Quality Assurance for Europe, Asia and Africa. Betsy's worked for AIB International for over 32 years. She opened the office in the UK in 1993 and has been involved in training and development of auditors worldwide. Betsy has been instrumental in the development of AIB's GMP standards and assisted in the development of the PPC standard and audit protocol. We're also delighted to be joined today by Hendrik Ludik, the Quality Assurance Manager for the Almarai Group. Originally from South Africa and currently based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Hendrik has an extensive career in quality and has worked in various countries including Kenya, Ghana, Swaziland, Saudi Arabia, Egypt and New Zealand. Today, Hendrik will be sharing with us Almarai's experiences of being the first company in the world to achieve the Pandemic Prepared certification. Now I'd like to hand over to Natalie.
Thank you, Rob. So we actually reviewed the preparedness plans of some of the top food and beverage companies in the world and found that actually 75% had missed critical requirements in their pandemic preparedness plans, and 75% had missed health crisis mitigation and management requirements. And so our project grew. Then we reached out and collaborated with thought leaders from government, academia, international agencies, and the world's most recognised brands. And that's when we began to recognise the possible global and industry-wide impact of what we were developing. We selected the most relevant and important best practices, which were then collated, consolidated, and supplemented with our industry expertise in managing food systems to create a single global standard. The Pandemic Prepared Certification. This is the first and only certification standard created for the food and beverage supply chain. So whether you are in food production, packaging, or distribution, this standard works for you. It elevates critical planning for people, facilities, and production inputs. By doing so, it delivers significant social impacts, builds bottom line resiliency, and unlocks insurance benefits. This proactive measure will help companies across the food and beverage supply chain prepare for the future with a best-in-class protocol benchmark. This is the only certification of its kind, providing a number of unique benefits. First, it is unique to the food and beverage supply chain, so it has been developed to address the particular challenges faced in the industry. Second, it is practical, vetted, and auditable. It's prescriptive in nature. Third, it provides assurance for employees, insurance providers, your customers, and consumers that you are committed to establishing and maintaining best practices. And fourth, insurability and risk mitigation. It can be used to prove that a company is lowering their business's risk of being negatively impacted by a future pandemic and can lower their legal risk and insurance premiums. This provides the food and beverage supply chain with a single and comprehensive reference source based on good manufacturing practices, common regulatory requirements, and food safety practices. I'm now going to hand over to Rob to go through a few points on the Pandemic Prepared Standard itself. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Natalie. Before we review some of the pitfalls of pandemic preparedness plans, I wanted to touch briefly on the 5 distinct categories in the Pandemic Prepared Certification Standard, each of which address a unique aspect of a food and beverage facility and should be included in your preparedness plan. Companies will need to demonstrate proficiency in each of these 5 areas to become certified to this standard. So let's take a brief look at each of the 5 areas, as each element is important in addressing the problems that arrive from the COVID-19 pandemic. So clauses in this section are related to managing the supply chain and operational needs during a pandemic-related crisis. Facilities need to be confident that operations will continue without disruption and that plans are in place to work around any problems created by the evolving situation. The Pandemic Crisis Management section show how a facility can continue to manufacture wholesome and safe product while implementing measures to protect the workforce. Clauses in this section are related to assigning responsibilities and maintaining needed supplies to keep the facility operating. Raw materials, packaging, chemicals, personal protective equipment, and contracted services all need to be sourced and procured. The Supply Chain Management section shows how a facility can ensure access to needed supplies and approve and procure supplies from existing and new vendors to prevent a supply chain disruption shutdown. For example, something as simple as ensuring the chemicals that you are using for COVID are actually labelled for COVID. Clauses in this section are related to planning for running during the crisis, shutting down the facility, and starting up after the planned shutdown. The scheduling management section provides the best practices to consider for protecting the workforce during the crisis, repairing the equipment and building for a planned shutdown of operations, and workforce, building and equipment preparation needed prior to startup of operations. We've seen that some companies have not planned effectively for a shutdown, and as such have not taken into consideration things like the expiration of ingredients. Clauses in this section are related to the mitigation measures that must be taken to prevent disease transmission between all workers, visitors, and contracted service providers in the facility. Management of people, practices, PPE, social distancing, and training are all critical to protecting the health of persons inside the facility. The Health Crisis Mitigation Measures and Management section provide the best practices for optimising and maintaining workforce health through the crisis. Have you considered, for example, the risks with used and potentially contaminated PPE being discarded with the general waste, reusing masks or taking them home, or putting on and removing PPE? Have you clearly defined the rules? Clauses in this section are related to those prerequisite programs that require evaluation to determine what additional steps are needed to support food safety and employee health during a time of crisis. Such programs include receiving, engineering, maintenance, integrated pest management, food safety plan, and food defence. The prerequisite program review section provides the best practices for updating these plans, for maintaining the facility, the food safety programs, and employee health at optimum levels during the crisis. Having audited numerous companies since the launch of the Pandemic Prepared Certification Standard and reviewed their pandemic preparedness plans, we identified some commonly missed elements, and we wanted to share a few examples of those with you today. In developing your plan and working to become certified, we want to make sure you're prepared and don't miss them too. So I'm going to hand back over to Natalie, who will talk you through some of the common pitfalls we've come across during our audits.
Thanks, Rob. So the first common miss is not actually having a crisis management plan that covers a pandemic. While you are likely to have a crisis plan in place that prepares you for situations like a food safety recall, a natural disaster, and other crises, you should really ask yourself this: does it actually define your response to a pandemic, and who owns and or actually manages that plan? Our experts found that crisis management plans were fragmented. Some components were managed by their environmental health and safety group, while others were maintained at the corporate level. During a pandemic, it really is crucial to know where your pandemic preparedness plan is located and who manages it, so the plan is cohesive and easily accessible. The second is not holding crisis management meetings during the pandemic. Communication with the crisis management team members is vital to ensure the various aspects of the crisis management plan are being carried out effectively. Most importantly, it's critical to assess whether your plan is working properly. These meetings are an opportunity to adapt and plan for the changing situation, enabling you to proactively navigate around other obstacles you may foresee. The third element that is missed is not putting PPE or chemicals through your supplier approval process. Like all other items purchased for your operation, your personal protective equipment and chemical suppliers should be vetted and approved using your established supplier approval process. At the onset of COVID-19, an unprecedented shortage of PPE and chemicals quickly arose. Unfortunately, many companies did not think to follow their supplier approval process for these items. potentially affecting food safety when new chemicals had not been assessed for suitability in the plant or may not have been purchased from an approved supplier. The fourth missed element is not planning for shutdowns. Whether an employee tests positive or the government mandates a shutdown of your facility, a shutdown really can happen to you at any time. So being prepared for an emergency shutdown entails many components. And I've compiled a short list of things to consider when shutting down. So you should activate your crisis management plan and your team members, check your security and food defense systems, maintain integrated pest management practices, follow your maintenance shutdown procedures, communicate with your suppliers for shutdown and to restart scheduling, and also look at training your staff during this downtime. So the fifth miss is when facilities have not considered the expiration of ingredients. Even though your production schedule may have increased or decreased drastically, you must continue rotating your stock of ingredients. Additionally, you will need to maintain control of perishables whilst also protecting those that are susceptible to insects. So the sixth miss is when staff are not familiar with the correct use of PPE. You should ensure staff have been made aware, have been trained on how to correctly put on and remove PPE, and also that there is a designated place to put on and take off that PPE as well. The seventh miss is on the reusing of masks. Staff should really be encouraged to keep work PPE separate from personal PPE to avoid the potential for cross-contamination. The eighth and final miss we will cover today is on proper disposal of used PPE. So used PPE should be considered as hazardous waste, and it should be treated as though it is contaminated. And as such, it should be disposed of in an appropriate way. So companies will need to demonstrate proficiency in each of these 5 sections to become certified to this standard. Upon completion, the Pandemic Prepared certification provides assurance for employees, insurance providers, retailers and consumers that the certified company is committed to establishing and maintaining best practices. Their operation is then recognised as bringing the highest standards of integrity to the global food and beverage supply chain. This results in not only internal and social benefits, but also business continuity and significant bottom line impacts due to their demonstrated commitment to decrease risk. Rob will now share with you what's next and how to contact us.
Thanks, Natalie. It's probably worth mentioning that the findings weren't just limited to the 8 pitfalls that we've covered today. There were in fact several more, and this is just high-level information to give people an overview. But we've also found our customers found our supporting services helpful prior to the scored PPC audits. These services include PPC online courses, a link of which is on this slide, a pre-assessment, or a 30 to 60-minute pandemic plan review. So the Pandemic Prepared certification is available internationally, and we're already working with global food and beverage brands to proactively prepare them for the future with both virtual and on-site audits. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to contact Natalie, myself, or our PPC team. And then next, I'd like to hand over to Hendrik to talk us through Almarai's experience of Pandemic Prepared certification and how they prepared.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Rob. for the invitation and also the introduction today to share the Almarai PPC journey with you and also to add some practical ideas and guidance. The fact is that Almarai achieved the world's first pandemic prepared certification through a structured team effort and by living the quality you can trust brand promise that we are known for. So from the start of the pandemic, the corporate crisis management team under the leadership of our CEO emphasized that our focus during this pandemic will be to protect our people and our supply chain. So therefore it was important that when we started looking at the PPC standard, that any standard Almarai implement must give us confidence that we will achieve these goals, as well as support what is stated in our food safety and quality policy. The Almarai Food Safety and Quality Policy states that Almarai is committed to excellence in food safety and quality, that we have a culture of quality in the business, and that we will provide safe and superior food and beverages that enrich our consumers' lives every day. So for us to achieve that, we need to apply and live by our mission, vision, and especially our values, which is aspire. Therefore, you can notice that our vision, our mission, and our values are interlinked with our food safety and quality policy. So once we made the decision to pursue PPC, we followed the following steps. We used Aspire as the foundation on which we build. We looked at the standard in detail. We decided on the teams. We evaluated our current practices and procedures. We made the adjustments we needed, and we kept the momentum going. From this, the acronym STEAM was created. Standard, team, evaluate, adjust, and momentum. When we looked at the standard, we identified individual clauses. We decided to put together section 1 and 3, the pandemic crisis management and intermittent operation planning management. Section 2, 4, and 5 we kept separate: supply chain management, health crisis mitigation and management, and prerequisite program review we kept separate. When we looked at the standard, we noticed that there's a lot of similarities between the content of the standard and the Almarai Food Safety Conference that we have annually. We had Professor Patrick Wall covering food safety. He was talking about emerging food safety and dietary related trends. We had Judy Lazaro from AIBI talking about back to basics and as food safety as the new normal. And we had John Keogh sharing his insight in preparing for the future crisis by highlighting the importance of transparency and trust in a changing global food chain. That was very much aligned with the standard. Our next step was to assemble a multidisciplinary team with the overall responsibility and coordination by the head of quality, Phil Clark. The rest of the team consisted of corporate and divisional quality assurance managers and representatives, head of enterprise risk management, head of business continuity, head of central procurement, as well as the head of health, safety, and security, each with an assigned area of responsibility within the area of expertise, with a set timeline. And once we set up this, we started to do the evaluation. We then did a robust evaluation of what do we do well, where do we need to improve, and we try to plan for every possible scenario, both current and developing, as well as post-pandemic scenarios. So we evaluated our communication channels to make sure of the flow, quality, and correctness of information. We evaluated the communication with our employees and their families inside and outside KSA, our consumers, manufacturers, operations, and suppliers. We communicated with our service providers. For instance, our pest control technicians stayed on site during the lockdown, same as our own staff. And we communicated with the government and approved sources, say for instance World Health Organization, got information from Johns Hopkins, etc. Especially we communicated with our certification bodies as we are in the process of moving more of our facilities to GFSI approved FSSC 22000 schemes. And for emergency preparedness, we communicated with local and regional representatives to be aware of any changes. We communicated daily at scheduled meetings with our staff. Daily COVID updates, we received that from the health and safety team at 3 o'clock every day. We evaluated our structures. We evaluated our crisis management team structure to cover from executive level to shop floor and to cover staff at every entrance, office, farm, site, depot, warehouse, workshop, truck, shift, accommodation block and canteen. And for the facilities, we evaluated the entrance control areas for health monitoring, for instance, on arrival. We segregation areas and isolation areas, social distancing, for instance, marking on the floors and barriers, and PPEs, not only the supply of PPEs, also the storage of used PPEs and the laundry operations. Procedures, we evaluated our procedures against every clause in the standard and kept evaluating it as the situation unfolds. And it's also important to evaluate the state of mind of our employees, as they are our most valuable assets, to understand their frame of mind in this uncertain times. Once we've gone through the process, which is continuous as the situation unfolds, you need to make adjustments and follow up to make sure your employees' brand and culture in the business are protected. Where needed, not only adjust your procedures, but also work schedule. We implemented partial and full lockdowns. We changed shifts. We had staggered arrivals. We addressed the levels of discipline. And for that, you need the buy-in from all employees and to a certain extent their families because of the changes in shifts and the lockdown. Adjustments is not only needed in procedure, in practices, but especially in behavior. The last letter in STEAM is for momentum. You need regular communication with all employees. Remember the ones that's on leave, the ones in self-isolation, and the ones working under lockdown conditions. Take time to celebrate small victories, virtual of course. Look for the positive and support each other. Use opportunities to learn new skills, and we all have grown from hearing in the beginning, you're on mute, to now keep on asking, can you see my screen? So maintain momentum, focus and passion. With PPC, you will be ready for the next challenge. Building up steam is one thing, keeping it going is another challenge, and that is why momentum is very important. So after we've completed steam, I'd just like to share some practical ideas with you. As already mentioned, we've created a folder system for each clause of the standard, not only the main headings, but for each individual subsection. We created a folder so that we can populate information into that folder from the various sections. We've compiled a rollout plan and we allocated responsibilities to update these clauses and subsections to specific people with a specific timeline to check and to see whether the documents has been updated and being uploaded. We further compiled a checklist to track our progress, to see which documents needs to be uploaded for each clause, what documents need to be updated, has it been done, when is it completed, and has it been signed off. Once we completed our preparations, we arranged for a pre-audit with AIBI. Judy Lazaro audited us. The advantage of doing that, I think it's important to understand what is the expectation of the individual clauses of the standard. You get to know the technique that AIBI used to audit you, as well as the same checklist that's being used in the official audit, so you can identify areas that you need to address, areas that you need to strengthen, but also it gives you an idea of what areas you are actually doing well in. For the day of the actual audit, we compiled an audit schedule with designated time slots and responsibilities. Everybody knew exactly what time they should be available to be able to answer questions with regards to their areas of responsibility. Furthermore, we also had some basic arrangements, for instance, housekeeping rules. So if you are not talking, keep your mic on mute. And if you'd like to contribute or add something to the discussion, or you need to answer a question, just use the raise your hand function so that people can see that you are the next speaker in line. Just some final thoughts. Don't underestimate how thorough and stringent the PPC standard is. I see this as a good thing. You know, Simon, I see things in practical terms. So when you replace your car brakes, you don't look for fit for purpose or easy to install. You install the best possible brakes to ensure maximum benefit in a crisis or an emergency. Don't underestimate how detailed the AIB audit is. We had Betsy Blair auditing us. Very stringent, very thorough, very comprehensive. Don't underestimate the positive benefits that PPC certification will have for your business. It ensures that you are better prepared for the next crisis or emergency. All information can be found and maintained in one designated place or folder system. And it ensures that you focus on all aspects of pandemic preparedness, because when we are under pressure, we tend to focus on our strong points, the areas that we know we are good at. But with PPC, you have to focus holistically. In closing, I would say that PPC standard not only gives you peace of mind to the business, your employees and consumers, it highlights areas of improvement. It does give credit to work being done by the teams on the shop floor, in the plants, over extended periods of time, starting long before the pandemic or lockdowns. That to me is some of the main benefits, giving credit where credit is due. And it all ties in with the literal translation of our name Almarai, which means quality worth trusting. In conclusion, I'll leave you with some recognition that we've received in 2020. And Simon will start a 3-minute video, just some background information about Almarai. Thank you for this opportunity, and we'll address any questions after this.
Founded in 1977, Almarai became the largest producer and distributor of nutritious and high-quality food and beverages in the Middle East, and the largest integrated dairy company in the world. Since our 2005 IPO, we have grown our family with the acquisition of Western Bakeries in 2007, acquisition of Hadco, and the establishment of IDJ in joint venture in 2009. The acquisition of Fondamonte Argentina was in 2011. And in 2019, the acquisition of Premier Food Industries. In 2017, our shared capital increased to 10 billion Saudi riyals, and we were selected as one of the most innovative companies in the world by Forbes. We now employ over 42,000 employees in 9 countries across 4 continents. Our 65 nationalities would make up 1/3 of the United Nations. With a total of 650 products, we offer 7 brands through 6 different categories. We produce 3.5 billion kilograms of products annually. And the 1.5 billion liters of milk we produce annually could fill over 600 Olympic-sized swimming pools. We bake more than 2.5 billion servings of bread and pastry products annually and bottle more than 660 million juice bottles per year. Over 10,000 quality tests are conducted every day to ensure our customers have quality they can trust. We have the capacity of over 200 million chickens yearly. Almarai herd has more than 195,000 Holstein cows, and if we stack it up, we will reach 300 kilometers in outer space. Almarai owns 9 farms divided between cows and poultry. More than 80 depots with products distributed in more than 110,000 retail outlets in 7 countries. More than 8,000 trucks travel around the region, making ours the biggest fleet in the Middle East. 2019 was another year of achievement for us. Almarai launched the first international issuance of its sukuk and received its international credit rating from Moody's and Standard & Poor's. The completion of Al Harj Solar Project, with more than 44,000 solar panels producing clean, renewable energy equivalent to 28 gigawatt hours per year. Almarai has been ranked 6th by Forbes among the world's best-regarded companies for 2019 in the food business and received the Best International Sukuk Program 2019 awarded by Jifa. Almarai was ranked first in KSA as the brand with the most positive buzz by Brand Index 2019 rankings issued by YouGov, and was also ranked first among the list of the best brands in terms of brand health. Almarai was considered second most impressive Middle East corporate issuer by Global Capital. Almarai was rated 7th internationally among dairy brands by Brand Finance, with more than 24 new products launched in 2019. As we move forward, Almarai continues to reinforce its position as one of the major brands in the food industry. Almarai, quality you can trust.
Okay, brilliant, very impressive. Such huge numbers. Fantastic slick video as well. That really enjoyed it. Okay, so we're ready for the questions. So attendees, type in with your questions. Thanks all for the presentation, by the way. Excellent information. First one there from Mohammed. Does pandemic mitigation plan involve testing food products for COVID-19? If yes, why?
No, it doesn't, because so far, until just recently, there was nothing showing that food transmitted the virus. I know that there's been a case in China, and that thinking may change, but at this point, no.
Okay, clear. Patricia, does Almarai hold any certifications for food safety?
I assume that's for me, yes.
It is, Henrik.
We have 14,000 for environmental. We have 9,001 2015 for corporate and business quality management, as well as ISO 22,000 2018 for our management of our manufacturing sites. And some of our manufacturing sites already moved over to FSCC 22,000. So yes, we are very. We see this as an important part of the food safety. Pandemic is overall, but food safety certification is very much needed.
Just further on that, Hendrik, you know, as part of GFSI certification standards, you know, crisis management, emergency planning, risk assessment, threat assessment, those types of things. How well prepared were you for a pandemic?
It depends whether it was the 28th of February or the 1st of March last year. We had our corporate emergency plans in place, but that was for business continuity. There was no specific emphasis on pandemic itself. So we did have role play. We had certain scenarios that we played through, but that comes to business continuity, not specifically for any pandemic scenario. But only after that we had to address our procedures and processes. We were fortunate that a lot of guidance from the local Saudi government, you know, the Department of Health, the food safety authorities, they gave us a lot of guidance of what is the expectation. So we took our emergency preparedness policies and plans that we already had in place for the business, and we just added the pandemic part to that.
Okay, thanks, Hendrik. That's one of the tricks to envisage in risk assessment what could go wrong, and the world would not have foreseen what actually happened, really. Michael, are there any guidelines from the FDA around pandemic management regarding reopening and shutdown, as well as plant sanitation? And how can a food factory apply these? Would that be you, Betsy, or?
Yeah, I think that would be, yes. There are guidelines from the FDA, OSHA, and the CDC. We can send you some links on that, but they do have guidelines for that.
Okay, and a question from Nazrin Mohammed. Work on employee effective training and following up for verify that every member of the team have the reason for. I'm not sure I can pick a question up out of that. Can anybody sort of make sense of that as a question?
Yeah, there are questions in the standard around training. I think Andre can probably speak to that. They did quite a bit of training. They did training on the virus itself. They did training on the reasons why temperatures have to be taken, why they have the lockdown, but I'll let Andre speak to that.
Yeah, I think thanks for that original question about the food safety standards. The emphasis in the food safety has changed from informing and communicating to your staff now to actually ensuring understanding, which is a totally different emphasis. So for us, we always feel that if people understand why they do something, it's easier to get the buy-in. And as you saw my presentation, it's important for us to get the buy-in from our employees. So we first wanted to make them understand why are we doing this lockdowns? Why are we doing the temperature checks? What is the reason for that? Because of two other reasons as well. As soon as you go into any mall here in Saudi Arabia, you are being tested. The temperature checks are being done. So we wanted to give information to our staff so that they can actually inform their families and their own communities as well. So we wanted to spread how you can be proactive from yourself as maybe one of the Almarai employees. So we want to make people understand why do you wash your hands, how to wash it, and also we want to protect our product and our employees, not to just use any chemicals that are suddenly available in every corner shop. We wanted to make sure that what to look for when they actually do buy their own personal protective clothing, their own masks, their own sanitizer for home use. So it was for us important to make sure they understand that. And then also we wanted to make sure they understand the effect of the responsibility that you have as an employee to the person next to you. To make sure that you keep your segregation and you keep your social distancing, even on the route to work. If you share a car, you can't have 6 people in a car now. You're going to only have 3. That type of information was important for us to communicate, and then specifically with our sales force. Our sales force, they are our ambassadors out there in the field. You cannot isolate our sales force, so we had to educate them how to protect themselves and how to keep social distancing, frequency and method of sanitizing, specifically for the people on the front lines.
Okay, thanks, Hendrik. Okay, a question from Angom. Does the PPC AIB apply to storage and distribution hubs, or will there be a suitable standard developed?
Yes, it does apply to storage and distribution hubs. We did look at a little of this when we conducted the Almarai audits. They have numerous depots. We did see some pictures from some of that. So what we've done with large companies is we'll do a corporate audit for those programs that are corporately managed and addressed, and then we look at the specific programs for the plants or the depots. But yes, it can be used for depots.
And just on the audits, are they remote, on-site, both?
So far all of them that we've done have been remote. I did the ones for Almarai, and we did them on their time frame. So I was up pretty early in the night there, but it was all remote. Yeah, we depending on the connectivity, we'll do a site tour, or they'll take videos on the day and show them of the things that we have to see actually on site.
Yeah, that was one of the questions actually. Practically on a remote audit, is it things like GoPros on heads and things like that? You know, actually what live video.
It can be GoPros. It can be cell phones. You know, you've got pretty good webcams now in cell phones. So whatever works best for the facility.
Okay.
I can probably come in there. You know, within our facilities, we don't always have signal. We don't have Wi-Fi, so we'll have to. The auditor ask us for something to see something. Then we actually physically walk there, and then we take the video and in the real time present the video to the auditor. But there's not always time that you can actually do it live because of the signal.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Question from Rachel Johnson. My boss isn't too keen on the pandemic. I don't think anybody is really, but will it be mandatory for SQF9 to add pandemic into my crisis plan, or should I make a separate one?
That's one we'll have to get back to you on. I don't conduct SQF audits. Certainly for the pandemic prepared standard, it can be either a part of your crisis plan or it can be separate, but it does need to be mentioned. It does need to be mentioned.
What about in the next revision of the AIB consolidated standards? How are you reflecting in there? Well, when is the next version, and how and if will it be reflected?
I believe we'll start on that either at the end of this year or January next year. But as with everyone, the pandemic kind of derailed a lot of things, and as far as I know, we will start on that probably around the end of the year to have it out some point next year. Natalie and Rob may have more information on that.
Hi Betsy, no, that's equally the information that I have, so yeah, I can agree with you there.
Okay, Nazrin just expanded a little bit. He wanted to know, is there any guidance or policies to verify the education of employees, on the measures? So to Henrik, how do you verify, that it's gone in?
Well, that is where the change coming to ensure understanding. I think it's very important to make sure that if you train your people on understanding why they do it, it's easier. But you have to monitor it. You have to monitor. You have to be vigilant, and you have to take responsibility for the person standing next to you. This is not only for your protection, but also for their protection and the brand so you have to visually make sure that people are firstly applying what they've been trained, and secondly that they understand why. But then they have to monitor it afterwards. You have to see people's behavior. If there's no change in behavior, for us, being certified for food safety, it wasn't any changes in hand washing. We just added sanitizer where needed. So we made certain arrangements, but it was not something new to us. It was more a change in what we already been doing, just to adapt. But you have to visually monitor that. This unfortunately, otherwise, I know some people use cameras. For us, we try to keep the responsibility between the specific teams with supervisors and the management of the teams. So that's the only way to actually physically do it. Because we did find that if you make people write exams and tests, they know the answers. It doesn't mean there's going to be a change in behavior. You want to physically see it when nobody's watching. Do they do it? And the only way to do that is to empower people with the knowledge. That seems to be working for us. Everybody takes responsibility for everybody. We always say that we've got 40,000 QA members in our team. So if you're a member of Almarai, you are a member of our QA team.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, we're a small gelato manufacturer. Will we need to go into all this detail as well?
Yes, the standard is the standard. Probably the best way to look at what all is required is to have a pre-assessment. We did that with Almarai, and Andre can probably speak to that. We go through and we look at what you have and see how it complies.
Also, because we have the requirements for our own suppliers, so we know that, as previously said by Rob, that people don't often read what you require from them in detail. So for us, the first step was actually to go through every individual clause to make sure that we understand what is the expectation. So once we were comfortable that we have populated all our folders with information that we need, we then ask for a pre-assessment. And as I said in my presentation, the advantage of having a pre-audit, you understand the philosophy of the standard. I believe that every standard does have a specific philosophy, and what BRC, etc., they've got some is very prescriptive, some is being more a guidance level. So that's the important, is you understand the philosophy of this. You also get to understand how you will be audited. What is the expectation of the auditor, how they address, how they answer the questions. And to me, one of the main benefits is you get a look at the checklist that they're going to use for the official audit. So to me, that was those 3 points: understanding the standard, understanding how you will be audited, and the checklist. I think makes it very worthwhile having a pre-audit.
Yeah, definitely. I think the food industry is obviously like yourselves, in a strong position already with a good fundamental management systems, hygiene, being well organized, reporting illness, all the things that are in GFSI. So building on that, the culture's already there. It's building more practices and procedures related to COVID. What did you find most challenging, if anything, Henry? Anything that you could say that was really difficult, or not, maybe?
I think it's just the detail of the standard, which I think is a very good thing. If we talk about touch points, for instance, you have to identify those touch points, and you can normally we have cleaning schedules in general, where we'll talk about railings and doors and handles. But when it comes to the pandemic preparedness, you need to specify what area and how the cleaning, etc. So that was I wouldn't say difficult, but I think it was quite intense. And then to keep the momentum going, if there's a crisis, everybody focus it and we all work together. But that was in March, and we are now nearly a year later. So the challenge we're having now is to keep the motivation. Keep the levels of the motivation high, and specifically now that the businesses are starting to open up again. I think managing that change from a lockdown to an open procedure, I think that is going to be a challenge for us going forward. We're already having the plans in place how we're going to do that, and I'm sure there's going to be no problems with that. But I do think that after all this time, that is going to be a challenge for us. And I think if you don't go through the standard, if you don't go through clause by clause, it's going to be difficult for you, because the audit is very thorough. If you don't understand the standard, every single clause, and you don't have evidence, practice in people that can come in and explain how you do it, I think that you're going to have challenges. But you don't do this for the standard, you do this for your business. So I'm very comfortable that if you are serious about your business, you can do this.
Okay, thanks. Rachel's asking, are the pre-audits free, or is there a checklist that I can download for free?
So I'll pick that one up. So thanks for the question, Rachel. The pre-audit itself isn't free, and we do sell the standard. But we do have a package that we can talk to you about, so our PPC team can provide you with some information on costs, etc. What we do offer is we offer a complimentary or free 30 to 60 minute pandemic plan review. So I've sat on some of these with customers where we go through a series of questions to identify where you're at the moment, and it naturally, by having that conversation, identifies some of the gaps that you may have. It gives you an idea of your readiness. So we can, by all means, get in touch with us, and we can arrange a further conversation with you to talk through how it all works.
Okay, Iman, what's your expectation regarding the pandemic and food industry within the next few years? You know, what will be the lasting effects of this? Anybody?
I'll start, and maybe one of the rest of you will finish. But I think that we've seen changes that will stay in effect. We've seen a lot more use of remote meeting platforms. There's been a lot of different types of inspections and audits developed that include, some are completely remote, some of them have a remote component for document review, and then you go on site where you can go on site. But as long as there are travel restrictions, I think that that's going to affect the audit business, of course. And I think that until the pandemic completely goes away, the virus goes away, you're going to see the need, even with vaccination, you're going to see a need for wearing masks, the hand washing, social distancing. I don't think we'll see an end to that anytime soon, but others may have a different opinion.
I think I agree with you, Betsy. It's as we've seen, we've been doing hybrid and virtual audits for a number of years with different clients, again depending on areas where it's unsafe for people to travel to or difficult to travel to. So I think we'll see a continuation, and we've seen that grow and improve. And I think I think Henrik, you alluded to the fact that at the start people were, am I on mute, and now it's, can you see my screen? I think we've seen with our customers there's been a lot more acceptance and understanding and a move forward in terms of technology, even to the extent, as Betsy mentioned, with smartphones to do part of virtual audits. In some cases you don't need massive amounts of technology to be able to do it. There's always investigation going on. We've looked at Google Glasses as an example for potentially sort of sending auditors in to or being able to get facilities to have a remote control person, a lead auditor can control from a remote location, etc. So I think things will continue to progress for a good significant portion of time, and I think we'll also see a shift in terms of customers. We ourselves have seen customers come to us because their existing certification body hasn't been able to get staff to them because they haven't got people on site. So people are looking around for alternative options. It's going to be, I suppose, a little bit more fluid moving forward.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oswaldo asking specifically about BRC storage and distribution, and do we need to have a contingency plan for that? I guess it doesn't matter what part of the food chain you're in or what standard you work to. I guess it's important to have plans and actions in place for pandemic preparedness and action plans. Do you agree with that, Henrik? It doesn't matter, does it?
I think the foundation for all food safety systems remain the same. I think the advantage of ISO that is now, the main headings are all the same. So the structure and I think what you want to achieve with your food safety are all the same. The individual ingredients and the requirements might differ slightly, but I think the biggest percentage of all food safety standards are the same. I don't think there's going to be a huge difference in that. Maybe there's just a difference in emphasis, but I definitely think that it will be part of all upcoming audits. We've gone through culture. Culture is now part of the food safety audits. Pandemic preparedness will be definitely in future. I assume will be part of all standards. So I don't think it's a major change for us in the food safety industry. For other companies, I think for smaller companies, this might be a challenge because you're going to end up having the same person having a lot of different responsibilities. But it can definitely be managed. I'm fully convinced of that.
Okay, thank you. Rachel, does anybody know if quat sanitizers kill bacteria? Well, they do kill bacteria. Does anybody know if they kill COVID?
I think that alcohol has been used most often, at least a 60% solution of it.
Yeah. I think that's pretty standard, isn't it? Ibtisem, preparing this crisis response plan, is it necessary only to help coping in these times of uncertainty, or is it for a better response to future critical events? Yeah. So is that Henrik? Is that something you're using the standard to deal with the situation, make sure everything to protect employees, keep the business going now, but what you're doing to look to the future for potential?
Yeah. I think it's important. This sort of links to one of the earlier questions about what do you think the future is going to look like. We've not done this for COVID. We've done this as an emergency response to whatever is coming, and we are quite sure COVID is a local flavor of the month. There will be something else in future, but it could also be the next one could be bacterial. It doesn't have to be viral. So we look at this as a foundation for our brand protection. We're not just doing this as a specific. We also don't call it a COVID response plan. We call this an emergency or emergency plan, because we look at all the other different aspects of what is in the business, supply chain, people, products. So we're looking at it holistically, and definitely this was not just to prepare us for now. We are, I think, one of my finishing slides, I said, with the passion that you have for this, you all will be prepared for the future challenge. We don't know what it is, but this was definitely been done for the long term, to have something in place, and it will keep evolving. Yeah. As new information becomes available, you need to change. As new challenges become more apparent, you need to change. So I think it will develop and continues over the next couple of years, but I don't think it's going to go away.
Yeah. And the last question there so far from Asma about staff training, should it continue after the pandemic? I guess, is that the most important thing? Staff behaviour, training, getting them to understand that's got to be, hasn't it?
I think it depends. I think geographically it's important. It depends where you find yourself in the world. We are very fortunate that there was stringent action taken by the government with requirements and very prescriptive ways of behavior. And I think that was all a very good point. So I definitely think that the staff knew there was something happening. We communicated on a daily basis with all the staff for them to understand where are we currently, what are the levels. What are the levels in the country that we are dealing with, where we sell our products, where we get our supplies from. And definitely important with the staff training is to make sure that not only the physical but also the emotional health of our staff. So when you train people, it is for them to also look at themselves and to make sure that if they've got any queries or uncertainty or anxiety, that they do have somebody to talk to, and that we can address that. We've been in full lockdown for several months. That does have an influence on the people, and specifically also, on their families. So we need to really have to have the buy-in of the people, and the training provided is something that they can share with their families. Again, I think it's crucial, but it will keep evolving. I think we've done what we had to for now. But next year when we talk again, it will be a totally different scenario, quite possibly.
Thanks for that, Henrik. Okay, and thanks, Autumn, for the link to the effective disinfectants from the EPA. So brilliant. Okay, that's it, I think. Any final thoughts that anybody would like to leave us with before we say our goodbyes? Anything?
From Almarai's side, you know, we did a lot of work beforehand, but we did find the advantages of PPC is the fact that you focus holistically, not on the areas that you knew you are doing well in, and also you can update your information. You keep all the information in a central place. I think that is some of the advantages of it, and it's definitely worth considering if you're in the business.
Okay, thanks, Hendrik. So, okay, so Betsy, I know it's you're in the USA and you've been up very early this morning, so thanks for your time today, Betsy. And Hendrik, it's a holiday in Saudi Friday, isn't it? So you've given up your time on a holiday, and it's late on. Us in the UK, it's just Friday afternoon, time to go to the pub, eh?
Yeah.
So thanks all. Really enjoyed this, having this panel today, and it's been very enlightening to hear, you know, your experience with the AIB team on COVID protection. So thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah, I think from me, Simon, I'd just like to say thank you to Hendrik for joining us, and also to you and IFSQN for hosting us today.
Yeah.
I know we've got some other webinars planned during the year, so if anyone's got any ideas of any topics that they'd like us to cover, we'd be interested to hear about those. And if people want to follow AIB International on LinkedIn to get news and any updates, etc., you know, we're there. Feel free to contact us about PPC. We're happy to talk to people. And just from me, just final one, just say, you know, have a pleasant rest of your day.
Yeah, and we thanks for that, Rob. And we will follow up afterwards with the recording and slides that've got all the contact details. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I've loaded a certificate of attendance in the sidebar for all the audience. You've got to add your own name to it, so print and sign it yourself. I can't sign, 700 and odd certificates, I'm sorry. Okay, so take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.